Yes, he starts to feel afraid of losing you, but not when you confront him and not when you punish him. It happens when you stop doing that one very common thing you used to do out of love so often that without realizing it made him emotionally blind. Today, you're going to discover what happens inside him when you stop protecting him from his own emotions, when you stop cushioning his emptiness and let him feel, without filters, the full impact of his own emotional distance. I'm going to reveal 5 key insights that shift your place in his mind and soul, not by controlling him, but from your center, from that version of you who no longer holds up someone who can't stand on his own. That version of you that commands respect, desire, and deep connection. So go ahead and hit the like button now and subscribe. It's totally free and it helps me so much. Share this video with someone you know who really needs to hear this. Let's go. Key number 1, protecting him from himself. The silent mistake that dims your value. There's something a lot of women do without realizing it, something that may come from love, but ends up completely shutting down the unconscious respect a man feels toward them. And it's not something loud or visibly wrong. It's subtle and dangerous precisely because it hides under the guise of love, care, and emotional support. That thing is trying to protect him from his own emotional discomfort, from his silence, his coldness, his indifference. It's softening the natural consequences of his actions so he doesn't feel uneasy. It's making the path smoother for him, even when he's the one laying down the stones. When you do that, when you step in between him and his own discomfort, you're breaking an invisible law of value. You're canceling out the possibility that he sees you as a strong presence. Because at the core, when a woman shields a man from himself, she's no longer his emotional partner. She becomes a symbolic mother. And a maternal figure isn't desired. She's appreciated, taken for granted, relied on, but she's not feared as someone you could lose. Let me tell you a story that really illustrates this. Her name is Ruth. She's 48. She'd been seeing a man for 8 months, a man who seemed to have it all: confidence, a great sense of humor, and a gaze that made you feel truly seen. They met during an intensive trauma workshop, and from the start, he told her he was coming out of a very difficult breakup. Ruth, with her open heart, chose to be patient. When he acted distant, she justified it with thoughts like, he's still processing. He probably had a bad day. Maybe he's feeling insecure but doesn't know how to say it. When he avoided deeper conversations, she didn't push. When he canceled plans or pulled away, Ruth tried even harder to make him feel comfortable, accepted, and pressure-free. Weeks went by and she stayed, present, loving, understanding. She didn't complain, didn't demand clarity, until one day he just drifted away. No reason, no explanation, like nothing had ever happened. When she finally asked what had gone wrong, he said only, "You're amazing, but I don't think I'm ready for this kind of relationship." That crushed her, because in her mind, she had done everything right. She hadn't pressured him. She hadn't demanded anything. She had been his safe space, his emotional refuge, his unconditional understanding. But that was the problem. She had spared him the emotional weight of his own actions. And the moment he started pulling away, instead of stepping back and letting him feel that distance, she leaned in even closer. She protected him, explained him away, rescued him from the pain of facing his own emotional shadows. And he felt that, not in words, but in a deep inner sense that no man can fully articulate. I don't have to step up. She gets me anyway. And what happens when a man realizes you don't hold him emotionally accountable? He no longer feels the need to earn your presence. He no longer fears losing you, because without knowing it, you've given him the power to hurt you without emotional consequences. And I'm not talking about revenge or punishment. I'm talking about no longer cushioning his life. Because as long as you keep standing between his actions and his emotions, he'll never see the impact of what he creates. And if he doesn't see it, he doesn't change. He doesn't wake up. He doesn't value you. He doesn't fear losing you. Because the fear of losing you doesn't come from how much you love him. It comes from how much you stop holding up the chaos he's caused. So next time you feel the urge to soften the blow of his coldness with even more warmth, stop. Next time you want to justify his distance just so it won't hurt so much, don't. Next time you feel like protecting him, Ask yourself if you're the one you're neglecting in the process. And remember this, you are not here to protect him from his own silence. You are here to protect your emotional peace from the impact of his immaturity. The day you stop doing that, he won't get angry. He'll be shaken. Because for the first time, he'll have to carry the real weight of what it means to lose you. That's when respect begins. That's when real desire is born. That's when his mind stops seeing you as his comfort zone and starts seeing you as someone he cannot replace. Here's an affirmation to help you integrate what's just been awakened in you. I don't cushion what's not mine to carry. If something hurts, let it hurt where it began. I no longer absorb what others need to face. Repeat it, not as punishment, but as embodied dignity. Now give me your full attention, because in the next key, you'll discover what happens when you stop saving him from his own emptiness. And he starts to miss your light more than your presence. Key number 2, when you stop saving him from his consequences, he starts to miss your light. Before we continue, if this message is already stirring something in you, hit subscribe and like. That way, YouTube will know the content is helpful and will share it more. Thank you so much. There is a pivotal, quiet, almost imperceptible moment when a man starts to feel like he's losing you. And the most surprising part? You didn't have to say a word. That moment happens when, for the first time, you let the consequences of his actions land squarely on him without stepping in to rescue him. When you no longer protect him with explanations, with emotional shortcuts, with that gentle care you always used so he wouldn't feel guilty. And yes, just like you're hearing it, when you stop softening life for him, he starts to miss you, not just for who you were, but for everything he now has to carry alone. Let me tell you a story that illustrates this perfectly. Irene, 41, a radiologist, had been in an on-again, off-again relationship for nearly 2 years with Damien, a brilliant, charismatic man, but emotionally irresponsible. He was the kind who'd disappear without warning when overwhelmed, cancel plans at the last minute, avoid difficult conversations with a charming smile. Irene, used to holding everything together, always found a logical excuse for his behavior. He's overloaded with work. Maybe he doesn't know how to express what he feels. I need to be more understanding. When he wouldn't reply for days, she'd be the one to text first. When he came back with a half-hearted excuse, she welcomed him with empathy. She never demanded anything, never complained. She wanted to be his safe space, until one day she couldn't do it anymore. But there was no explosion, no drama, just a quiet decision. I will no longer protect him from the consequences of his own actions. And that's when everything changed. The next time Damien disappeared for 3 days without a word, Irene didn't message him. The next time he canceled a date, she didn't offer to reschedule. The next time he showed up with his usual charm, Irene responded politely, but with no emotional availability. She didn't insult him. She didn't block him. She didn't send a long emotional text. She simply let him face the consequences and went on living her life, with dignity. At first, he didn't get it. He thought it was a strategy, that she'd go back to cushioning his discomfort like always. But when a week went by, and then 2, something shifted. The silence wasn't peace for him anymore. It became a mirror, a judgment, a reality check. And for the first time, he missed her light, not for what she did, but for what she no longer spared him from. He missed the warmth with which she softened everything. He missed the emotional cushion that always absorbed the impact of his irresponsibility. He missed not having to feel bad for hurting her, because she had always made it easy. But this time it wasn't easy. And that broke him, because a woman's true presence isn't valued when she's always there. It's felt when she stops doing the emotional labor a man should have done himself. There, in that space that once felt cozy and now feels empty, is where the true fear of losing you begins. Because his soul starts to recognize what's gone, the privilege of being understood without having earned it. And while the ego may take time to admit it, the soul knows what's valuable. And this is where so many women betray themselves without realizing it. Because as soon as he returns with an apology, they run right back to softening everything again. To explaining, justifying, calming things down, shielding him from the emotional weight. But what they don't see is that every time they do that, they're robbing the man of the chance to grow. Because no one changes while someone else is doing the emotional work for them. And no man fears losing a woman who's always saving him. But when you stop saving him, he doesn't just miss your light, he begins to face his own shadow. And that's when everything shifts, because now you're no longer available to sugarcoat the consequences. Now he has no one to use as his emotional balm. So, for the first time, he's left alone with his own lack, with his distance, his emptiness, the echo of his actions. And if his soul is even slightly awake, that impact shakes him, because now the relationship no longer revolves around his comfort. It starts to reflect his emotional maturity or his lack of it. So if you're someone who has always rushed in to explain, to fix, to smooth things over, I want you to remember this. Letting a man face his own consequences doesn't make you less loving. It makes you more honest. And most importantly, it brings you back to your rightful place. Your role isn't to be the savior. It's to be a conscious woman who loves herself enough not to block someone else's growth, maturity, and if he truly cares, to give him the chance to step up. Here's an affirmation to plant deep within you. I do not cushion others from their reality. Those who neglect me will meet the echo of their absence. I no longer explain, I reflect. Now listen closely, because in the next key you'll discover the difference between loving as a protector and loving as a mirror, a difference that can change everything. Key number 3, be a mirror, not a shield. Your new way of loving with awareness. There's a kind of love that wears you out, not because it isn't real, but because it's been carried by only one person for far too long. It's the kind of love where you stay silent so you won't hurt him, where you give in to avoid conflict, where you explain every emotion so you're not misunderstood, where you absorb his absence, his indifference, his silence, so he won't feel judged. And meanwhile, you start to disappear, not all at once, not in a dramatic way, but little by little, emotionally. You disappear from yourself, all in the name of keeping the us alive. Sound familiar? Let me tell you a story that may hit closer to home than you expect. Her name is Mira. She's 54. She's been married for 27 years. For nearly 3 decades, Mira was everything expected of a good woman. She was the mother of 2, a loyal wife, the household manager, the one who kept the details together, the emotional support for everyone, and of course for him too. Her husband James was always a man of strong character, reserved, focused more on his work than on emotional connection. And while he was never violent or cruel, his emotional absence was like a steady chill throughout the home. Mira learned to compensate. She created the warmth. She kept the conversations going. She learned to read his moods, to soften his reactions around the kids, to explain away his silence. That's just how he is. He doesn't know how to express himself. Sometimes she cried in the bathroom, but then she'd dry her tears, set the table, and carry on. She took care of him when he was sick. She waited for him when he came home late without a word. She gave him space when he grew distant. And hardest of all, she protected him even from himself, so he wouldn't have to see the impact his emotional coldness had on her. And then came the moment that changed everything. One afternoon, her youngest daughter, now an adult, spoke to her with both tenderness and firmness. "Mom, you don't have to be anyone's shield. I know you do it out of love, but who's taking care of you? Do you even know what you're worth? Or are you hiding it from yourself so he won't feel uncomfortable?" That hit harder than all the accumulated years of emotional distance, because it was true. In her effort to protect him from any discomfort, she had made herself completely invisible. And that night, for the first time in 27 years, Mira didn't wait for him to come home for dinner. She didn't call him. She didn't ask if he was okay. She simply served herself the food she had made, sat down at the table, and chose herself. That was her silent revolution. In the weeks that followed, there were no major arguments, no complaints, just a subtle but devastating shift for him. She stopped explaining how she felt. She stopped holding up his world. She no longer shielded him from the impact of his coldness. She no longer covered for him with the kids. She stopped filling the silences with reassuring words. And that was disorienting for him, because for the first time, He had to see himself reflected in the face of a woman who no longer bent to his comfort. He had to hear the echo of his own emptiness, with Mira no longer there to soften it. And he began asking questions he'd never cared to ask before. Are you okay? Is something wrong? You seem distant. Did I do something? But it was too late for easy answers, because she wasn't speaking from pain anymore. She was speaking from clarity. And in that clarity, she realized she would never again be a shield, that if someone wanted to be close to her, they'd have to earn it. Because love is not just support, it's also a mirror. And a mirror that always softens the image never allows you to change. When a woman matures emotionally, she stops being afraid of making others uncomfortable. She stops fearing that her truth is too much. She stops protecting others from the reflection of their own actions. And that's when she finally starts to be truly loved, not because she's offering herself as a savior, but because she's standing as a conscious presence. So if you're in that stage where you've already given everything, but you're still explaining, justifying, softening, I want you to remember this. You are not here to spare someone else pain. You are here to stop inflicting it on yourself. And if he can't face the impact of how he treats you, he doesn't deserve the softness of your soul. Here's an affirmation to take with you. I no longer soften what hurts. I don't fill voids that aren't mine. I'm not a shield, I'm a mirror. And those who can't bear to look won't be allowed to stay. Pay close attention, because in the next key, we'll talk about that uncomfortable but liberating moment when you stop feeling guilty for making someone uncomfortable and realize that's where your freedom begins. Key 4. You're not being cruel. You're just done protecting him from his shadow. There's an invisible line that many women cross without noticing. It's not the line between love and indifference. It's not even the line between presence and absence. It's the line between caring for someone else and erasing yourself. And the cruelest part is that many women reach this point believing they're doing it out of love, because they've been conditioned to manage everyone else's emotions, to hold it all together, to anticipate others' emotional voids before those people even recognize them. And just like that, without realizing it, they enter into a silent agreement. I will disappear so you won't have to face yourself. But here's something you need to see with new eyes. It's not your job to protect a man from his shadow. It's not your duty to cover the emptiness he refuses to face. It's not your responsibility to smooth the path every time his immaturity, ego, or lack of awareness makes him stumble. Because when you do that, he doesn't grow. He doesn't awaken. And worst of all, you disconnect from your own truth in order to keep alive a relationship built on imbalance. And yes, there's a part of you that already knows this. You've felt it more than once. You've noticed how every time you try not to make him feel bad, you end up feeling empty. Not because he directly asked you to, but because you've gotten used to reading his soul, just to keep him from any emotional discomfort. But real love isn't about avoiding discomfort. It's about creating space for transformation. And transformation doesn't happen as long as you keep protecting him from the reflection he needs to see. Let me tell you a longer story, but one that's worth every second of your attention. Ariana, 47, a teacher, had been in a relationship for nearly 5 years with Nicolas, a man 10 years younger than her. He was fun, spontaneous, full of spark, but deeply afraid of real emotional commitment. From the beginning, Ariana sensed it. She could feel his emotional immaturity, his way of dodging important conversations, his constant need for external validation. But she told herself, I can understand him from a different place. He's never had someone who truly supports him. And that's exactly what she did. For 5 years, Ariana was his emotional backbone. When he had a bad day, she listened, even if she was exhausted. When he disappeared for hours without explanation, she didn't confront him. When he said he wasn't sure what he wanted, she answered, It's okay, I'm here. But each time she swallowed her frustration, her boundaries, her needs, a part of her began to wither. And the most painful part? He never even noticed, because she was so good at hiding it, so good at keeping the peace, so good at seeming okay, even when she felt broken inside. Until one day, out of the blue, without any major fight, he said to her, I feel like this has gotten too comfortable, but I don't know if I feel truly alive. Comfortable? She nearly laughed. Comfortable for him, sure, because he never had to carry the real weight of sustaining a relationship, because he was never challenged, because she shielded him from every emotional discomfort. That day, Ariana didn't stop him. She didn't ask for an explanation. She didn't show him everything she'd given. She just said a sentence she had been holding in for years. "What you call comfort, I experienced as exhaustion." And she let him go. But the most powerful part came weeks later, when Icarus tried to come back. Not with some heartfelt declaration, just with the same old attitude, expecting her to welcome him like always, with understanding, with openness, with tenderness. And that's when Ariana realized something that changed her to the core. What she was feeling wasn't cruelty, it was freedom. She wasn't cold now. She wasn't hardened. She had simply reached the point where she could no longer keep protecting a man from his own mirror. Because every time she shielded him from his actions, she was betraying herself. And this time, for the first time, she chose to let him face his shadow. Not out of revenge, but because that's what awakened women do. Women who understand that their role isn't to soften life for others, it's to lovingly, firmly reflect what the other person needs to see in order to grow. And if he refuses to look, then he doesn't deserve to stay. Because the real fear of losing you doesn't begin when you confront him. It begins when you're no longer there to shield him from the consequences. When he realizes that the woman who once made him feel so comfortable no longer covers for him, no longer soothes him, no longer protects him. That's when he starts to fear you, to value you, to wonder why he now feels so exposed. And the answer is simple. Because you are no longer his emotional shield. You are the mirror he never wanted to face. And if he can't handle his own reflection, then he's not ready to handle you. So hold on to this affirmation, because you are no longer here to carry someone else's shadow. I'm not cruel. I'm fair to myself. I let others face what they've caused. My love doesn't protect from truth, it reveals it. And stay with me, because in the next key, we're going to integrate this transformation into a new way of being present, without over-explaining, without justifying yourself, and without giving more than someone is truly ready to hold. I'll show you how to become a presence that no longer offers herself, but one that is consciously chosen. Fifth key, your new sacred law. You will no longer protect anyone from what they need to feel in order to grow. There comes a time in life when the woman you once were says goodbye. Not with drama, not with shouting, not even with a speech. She says goodbye with a single decision. I will no longer give myself to someone who hasn't given themselves to themselves. And that moment is sacred. It doesn't come from anger. It comes from awakening. Because you're no longer trying to change him, or make him understand, or make him see you. You're finally seeing the woman who always tried to save everything, and realizing that her need to save was slowly destroying her. You're no longer at war with him, you're at peace with yourself. And in that peace, a new law is born, an inner law that isn't up for negotiation. I will no longer protect anyone from what they need to feel in order to grow. Because if you protect him, you disable him. If you explain everything, you take away the chance for him to understand on his own. If you cushion everything, he'll never feel the real weight of his disconnection. And if you save him from his discomfort, he'll end up believing that you're just part of the emotional furniture, that you'll always be there. Not because he's cruel, but because you taught him to expect it. And this is where many women still fall. They confuse love with sacrifice. They confuse kindness with silence. They confuse compassion with emotional overprotection. But there's a vast difference between loving someone and handing over your center just so they won't feel uncomfortable. So let me say it plainly. You can't keep explaining every decision you make. You can't keep justifying emotions that he never tries to understand. You can't keep softening everything he breaks with his indifference. Because every time you do, you validate it, you give him permission, and you dissolve into a watered-down version of yourself that no longer knows where the line is between holding space and disappearing. And that's when everything shifts, when you choose to stop being the shield and start showing up as a presence. Let me tell you one last story that clearly shows this transformation. Lena, 50, a social worker, had been married for over 2 decades. She had always been the one who brought soul to every conversation. Her husband, Ernest, was a kind but emotionally distant man who left not only domestic matters in her hands, but emotional ones too. Lena was the one who noticed when something was off. She was the one who initiated talks. She was the one who held the balance in the relationship. But over the years, Lena began to fall ill. Not with anything physical, something deeper. She got sick from not being seen, from being the only one looking after the connection, from always being emotionally available, even when he wasn't. Until one day she looked in the mirror and thought, I don't recognize myself. This isn't who I was. I used to be light. I used to be passion. Where did I go? And in that moment, she didn't blame Ernest. She didn't confront him. She just stopped doing what she had done her whole life, cushioning his discomfort. If he didn't ask how she was, she stopped filling the silence. If he avoided a conversation, she didn't chase it. If he acted irritable, she didn't rush to soothe him. If he got emotionally lost, she let him stay lost. Not because she stopped loving him, but because she finally started loving herself more than the idea of a relationship where only one person does the holding. And then something unexpected happened. He started to feel uneasy. He began watching her more closely. He started asking about things he used to ignore. He tried, awkwardly, but sincerely, to reconnect, because for the first time, he wasn't being protected from his shadow. He was being reflected. And Lena realized she didn't need to raise her voice. She just needed to stop softening everything, because your strength isn't in how much you endure. It's in how often you choose yourself, even if that unsettles someone else. And if he can't handle your truth, your silence, your pause, your intentional absence, then he's not on the same level as the woman you're becoming. So remember this: not everything needs to be explained. Not everything needs to be given. Not everything needs to be softened. My new sacred law is this: if something must hurt, let it hurt where it began. I no longer interrupt someone else's process. I stay present in myself and for myself. Stay with me, because now we're heading into the closing message. And in it, I'll show you how to integrate everything we've covered into a new kind of presence. One that no longer begs for love, but inspires it. He doesn't start valuing you when you understand everything. He starts valuing you when you stop placing yourself between him and his own emotions. When you let the silence he created show him what your presence really meant. When you stop shielding him from the discomfort he needs in order to grow. Because true love isn't shown by giving everything. It's shown when you know when to stop giving without stopping the love. When your center speaks louder than your words. When your pause isn't punishment, but respect for yourself. Leave a comment below. I am not a shield. I am silent truth. And let that phrase close the cycle where you carried more than was ever yours to hold. Because from today forward, you will no longer be the woman who softens someone else's consequences. You will be the one who walks with unwavering presence, even if it means the other person doesn't understand you right away. And if someday he wonders why he started fearing losing you, let the truth be clear. It wasn't because you changed. It was because you stopped protecting him from the reflection his soul needed to see. And in that reflection, he finally saw the magnitude of what he was about to lose. And if this message resonated with you, I invite you to give it a powerful like, subscribe, and don't forget to activate the notification bell. But above all, don't leave just yet. There's so much more waiting for you. Dive into the other videos here on the channel and keep expanding your energy and your power. I'll see you in the next video.